Matt Lechtenberg and Michelle Elliott will run through their presentation. Matt Lechtenberg is with the Iowa Department of Agriculture and Stewardship, and Michelle Elliott is the project coordinator on the Central Turkey River Water Quality Initiative project. So, Matt will start.
Jerry mentioned I'm Matt Lechtenberg, Water Quality Initiative Coordinator for the Department of Agriculture. For those that were here last year are familiar with the Water Quality Initiative. The Water Quality Initiative was established in 2013 to begin implementation efforts around the nutrient reduction strategy. And so today I will visit about some of the projects that we're doing with the Water Quality Initiative funding that we received from the Iowa Legislature. And so just one component of that Water Quality Initiative. And so when we look back at the strategy, we look at the practices and the technologies that were assessed, and the amount of load reduction that we could achieve with implementing those practices. And so what we've done with the Water Quality Initiative projects and specifically in the demo projects is solicited groups and organizations to get together and assemble watershed projects to come and deliver those technologies that fit into those local areas, integrating that systems approach that the strategy detailed, that we need to do our best in-field management, coupled with the edge-of-field components to have a cumulative effect on reductions, and fitting these practices into the systems that are in those watersheds. And so this is kind of the basis of what the watershed projects we're looking for. We want to demonstrate the practices, the technologies. It's not, there's funding available to establish these practices, but it's not going in and achieving saturation of all those practices and costing on every acre of cover crops in these watersheds. There's not enough dollars to go around. So we're trying to show, especially at the in-field management practices, show how these practices can fit into the operation and can be something that can be implemented long term. Really look at fostering those partnerships that are available in those watersheds too, those local trusted sources. There could be ag retailers or co-ops. Engage those folks. Look at the ISU extension folks, commodity groups. Who are those groups that are active in those areas, and how can they help deliver the project objectives? And then and really be strong with the outreach education component as well. So not just putting the practice in and walking away. We're talking about it. We're telling folks what they need to do these same practices on their farm, how they can get engaged. And we really want these projects to be local hubs for other folks outside those watersheds. So we're not just looking at going into one watershed for a few years, move on to the one right next to it. We want this to be something that can be duplicated beyond these watersheds. So through two RFAs, this is a map detailing those projects that we have currently underway. The blue lines indicate this is the targeted Huck 8 watershed scale. These are the only areas that were eligible for these dollars to establish projects. Those are designated by the Water Resource Coordinating Council, groups working together to look at where those hotspots are across the state, distributed across the state, where we can get projects and implement these demo projects. And so then the green outlines showcase where those existing projects are. And so we had 8 projects initially through the first RFA, 5 through the subsequent RFA, and so this represents all 13 of those currently active projects. So those initial 8, they're in just in their second year of implementation, and you'll hear a little bit later an example from Michelle in WATERSHED County on what she's doing in her project and kind of a summary of her year 1 activities. And so when we look at these projects, I won't go into a whole lot of detail on what each of those projects are looking at, but we look at some of the unique things in those watersheds, what are those characteristics, and how are those projects tailored to the agricultural system in those watersheds. So if you look at in Benton County, we have 2 projects. This is 2 different projects, but each of those projects are relatively different in their approach. The one in Benton County has a large concentration of seed corn production, and so the project looked at targeting those acres because of the opportunities that it presents to establishing certain conservation systems in that type of agricultural production system. And then you look at some of the edges. Certainly, we get through Iowa, you look at the landscape changes on the edges of Iowa. Certainly, different practices, different systems out there, and then even just livestock systems as well. So we have high concentration of livestock up in northwest Iowa, so certainly the practices that fit up there need to be geared towards how that livestock system is established and how it produces up in that watershed. So keeping those things in mind, that's what these demo projects are about, how they can work in those systems and be a learning process as well. So just a few numbers based on what those projects have represented. So it's 13 projects. All of them are led by the local soil and water conservation districts, but it's not those soil and water conservation districts alone. These projects represent over 70 partners that are engaged in this process. By having these partners, they all share different roles. So it's not just one project coordinator having to do all the outreach and all the landowner contact and getting folks signed up for cost share or reporting or anything like that. So all of these partners are serving their roles and playing to their strengths. So some of them might be an advisory role. They maybe are doing some monitoring, or they're doing outreach activities. They're trusted sources to producers in there, and so they can help bridge that contact with somebody that maybe doesn't have those connections, expands our message, leverages our resources, and get more bang for our buck by going that route. We also just received an award from USDA NRCS on a regional conservation partnership project to bring additional resources to those projects, present more options to growers in those watershed areas, and really and just another opportunity for those watershed projects and those farmers and landowners in there to have other options, and getting those dollars, both federal and state dollars, working together so we can expand the implementation that we're achieving out in those watersheds. And so that'll be going here. We hope to get some practices on the ground through that. We're in the agreement process on those. So IDALS, we submitted a grant or a proposal, and we received $3.5 million on top of the demo projects. And then also the city of Cedar Rapids kind of took the same approach, and they're actually just going to focus on the middle cedar here, and they're putting in some of their own resources, brought in about over $2 million through that same program. So what are some of the future efforts that we're looking at doing? We're going to expand the watershed demonstration projects that are out there. We've got 13 now. Be an announcement soon, making decisions here soon on some new projects, adding to that list and getting them going, doing some of the same activities that some of the other projects have done. Seek additional resources for their implementation, extend project life. The state's committed right now to 3 years. That's the approach that we've had to take, just based on the legislation. When the dollars are available that we receive, certainly know that we want to be involved with these watersheds up beyond 3 years. Some projects, might not be geared up till second year or third year, and so we don't want to just have this boom bust cycle. We want to keep those sustainable as well, and keep doing the good things that they're doing, and continue to facilitate other partnerships and coordinated activities. So when a project came together, they had a list of partners and from the folks that they were engaged in, and then even as the projects were established, there's other partners that want to be engaged in this as well, and so continue to facilitate those, expanding those partnerships and getting more folks involved in the projects. So with that, just a brief introduction. I think we'll have Michelle come up and talk more about her specific project. Michelle is a project coordinator up in Winship County, the Winishik Soil and Water Conservation District, working on the Central Turkey Nutrient Reduction Project. And she can give you an example of what boots on the ground are doing.
Thanks, Matt. Am I on? Okay. Okay, so in my years of coming to the watershed, the Waters Conference, day one is lasagna. Everybody knows that. Day two, cold meat sandwiches and soup. So yesterday when they had the penne pasta, that kind of screwed me up a little bit, and upstairs today I see it's some Mexican fare. So don't get your heart set on the cold meat sandwiches, which are also very good. Here are a list of our project partners. Number one, really the watershed landowners, producers. And to get these projects on the ground, sure there's cost share, sure we can preach to producers about how good these projects are and the practices and what they do for soil health and quality. But I grew up on a farm. My parents still farm. Farmers are rubberneckers. If their neighbor's doing it, they're more likely to do it than, if they're sure if they'll get paid for it. But I think that's one of the more important things. If we can get the good producers on board and then, kind of get the other producers on board, that will get us the most bang for our buck. We've got great partnerships with both of our local co-ops, particularly in the cover crops practice. We have a producer come into the office and they want to do cover crops. We get them signed up for some cost share. We say, okay, go talk to the co-op. They take it from there. So that's been really great. Also, we've got a great demonstration project I'll talk a little more about later with Northeast Iowa Community College and Northeast Iowa Dairy Foundation. This is a project area just about a little over 76,000 acres in the southwestern portion of Wenatchee County, into Chickasaw, and a little into Fayette. More than 400 rural landowners. And another important reason with the nutrient reduction strategy is we've got a lot of high flood events, more so than in recent years than we've had historically. So that's another reason we really need to get the water into the ground so it's not washing off that soil and those nitrates into the surface waters. This happened third week of June 18, 19, but in southern Wenatchee County, in the span of about a week, we had 11 to 13 inches of rain. So this affected this watershed project area, and also we've got another project, the Yellow River Headwaters project, that really got hit hard by this flood as well. This project focused primarily on management practices for the time being. Cover crops, no-till are big ticket items, but we just thought, what can producers do? Something easy for them to do, short of putting up a terrace or a pond, something they can do easy to take baby steps into the strategy. I mean, there's certainly more, as Matt had in his presentation, practices they can do, but these are what we have funding for through this project. Just quick summary of our outreach activities. We've been trying to do a lot of different things because this is a demo project, and try to be a little innovative and take a different approach to things. That picture is from our kickoff event in June down at NICC, Northeast Iowa Community College, and we'll do another one of those this year. At that kickoff, we had a rainfall simulator trailer. Has anyone seen this? I think it's an excellent way to show producers, anyone, raining infiltration runoff. You can see on the left is runoff, on the right is infiltration. You can have up to 5 soil samples. So we had, conventional till pasture or no-till. You can see the difference, especially with the no-till. The infiltration is full. The runoff is just about 0. So that was a great visualization for producers. And we also made us a couple of root green boxes, and I've got these specs if anyone's interested in them. I can send them to you. They're from a soil and water conservation district down in Virginia, I believe. But we made a few of these. We have some interns. It was really handy with carpentry. So planted some cover crops in them in mid-June and took them around to different events to show rooting depth. So we had, it's kind of tough to see, but we did have, an excess of 3 feet of fibrous roots on all of them. You can see a little better on the 18 inches for that. That's cereal right on the left. But it was really, we also put a dozen night crawlers in each one to kind of, simulate, field-like conditions in Iowa. We weren't going for natural conditions, but just to simulate, a healthy soil has got some night crawlers in it. So we had, this is tillage radish. So the picture on the left was taken in mid-August, and then first week of September, one of my coworkers came up, who's outside our office. He came up in the office and kind of thinking, dude, have you seen your tillage radish? No, what's wrong with it? It's gone. What? So I went down, and closer inspection, we had an infestation of cabbage worms, and it was just amazing because I looked at this was like from a Friday to a Monday, and last time it was just completely gone. We had about a 10-inch tuber on that tillage radish though, but just something that happens, and that would be very devastating for a field, but this should start, maybe. Well, it's playing, but it's not visualizing here. I can hear it. Okay, well, this is an aerial application. I'm not sure if we can get this going. Okay, here. It's not going to work. Okay, so this is a cover crop aerial application, and they usually fly this, around 30 feet in the air, about 140 miles an hour. And you can see how close they get to the power line. I mean, it's pretty efficient. They go out and, so I took all these videos. One of our co-ops was really, the agronomist there was great to work with. He kind of told me what fields they were going to be at, when they were going to be at the airport. And so I went out and took a lot of videos, and I got back to the office and was pretty happy, like, hey, I got all these videos. And a couple of people said, did you stand out in the field and let it, fly over and hit you? Oh, so maybe next year I'll do that. But and this next one, this was loading the plane, and this probably won't work either. But usually in one load they can get anywhere from 35 to 50 acres, depending on the mix. And usually it could be from touchdown to take off, 3 to 4 minutes. So it's pretty efficient. It's just one pilot. They come in and they kind of get the whole area. We had 2,400 acres in the watershed area seeded, and they did that in a few days. So it's a pretty efficient operation. Just some photos of our cover crops. This was obviously seeded into standing corn. This is cereal rye, winter hardy crops. So we had quite a bit of that. We've got a lot of dairies up there, so that's a pretty popular cover crop. This is the same, and shows that you still get a good stand even after taking silage off and baling it and whatever. There's quite a bit of cover yet. And of course, last year was a pretty banner year for aerial application. We got the seed on the soil at the right time, and we have some good rain events to keep it moist. Another thing we're kind of looking at doing, seeing how the seeds spread out. This is a pretty good mix. There's some clover and some hairy vetch and tillage radish and rye in there. We've had the co-ops are kind of coming up with some good mixes, and we had a few producers try some unique mixes, because the more diversity the better, because every cover crop is good for a different purpose. And this is a good one. This producer has already signed up for cover crops. He signed up a few months ago for cover crops for this next year. He seeded this into some white row beans and had a great stand and foraged it, and didn't have an issue taking the beans off when he did that, but this is great to see. Had a few field days. You heard Bill Ames yesterday over lunch talk about Women Food and Ag Network. So upper left was a WFAN field day. They were going to have their event up in Decorah, and their conservation topic for this meeting was cover crops. So they found out about our projects. They contacted me and said, hey, we have this demo plot down at NICC, so they moved their whole meeting down there. And it was a really cold and rainy day, but we still went out and looked at some cover crops and dug some holes and stuff. So it's just great. We've had, since I've been doing this project, I've given more presentations probably in the last year than I have in the past 5 combined, because there's so much interest in this, and there's so much outreach opportunities for it. So this is one of our best partnerships, and this has been many years in the making, but the administration at NICC now and the Dairy Foundation, they want to be good neighbors and do conservation because it's the right thing to do. So they're 100% no-till and cover crops on all their acres. Last fall they did some projects there that's listed on the left. Also, we've put in to get some dollars for some urban practices down at the dairy center, because they don't have no runoff, no stormwater controls on their livestock buildings. So we're looking at doing a small, paver parking lot and an enhanced rain garden and a couple of things down there. And they're an excellent hub to distribute this information. They've got a lot of exposure, over 5,000 visitors annually. So this is just a great site for us, and some producers can come and see, this is how these practices work before they would try them on their own farm. These are headlines. The top 2 are from the kickoff event, which was held down at NICC. The bottom three are all as a result of things that NICC, the Dairy Foundation, have put in. So it's just great to see. I mean, anytime you look at, you know, the headlines in the newspapers, everything's about water quality. So, and the nutrient reduction strategies. So these are just, you know, it's excellent to see. And, you know, sometimes some of these articles come out, I don't even know they were, you know, coming out, but I just read them, and it's great. This is the bioswale they put in last fall. If you can see up by the skidster up there on the right, they did a curb cut because they have all this runoff coming. There's a parking lot up there. So as we come into this bioswale, they'll put mulch on this spring and put some natives up there. And then it's going to go in. Well, this is another thing we did. We had these like real estate signs, and we post them out at different practices, you know, for temporary, you know, a few weeks at a time. So, you know, people drive by, they can see what's going on, and if they're curious, they can get in touch with us. So the bioswale is going to outlet into the stormwater wetland, and then from there into this waterway. The wetland's up kind of on the left. And then further down, this is a rock chute wetland right along Highway 150. So if you're ever up in the area, this used to be all pasture, so now it's going to be a rock chute wetland. The sediment basin down further by the Dairy Foundation. So you can see they put in the sediment basin in the center of the photograph, and they fenced off to keep the cattle off, and then they'll get that all seeded. This also just went in last fall. Then they'll be doing a pond restoration this spring as well. This pond was made back in the late 70s maybe, and it's all silted in, so they're going to scrape that out and restore it. And then the whole premise is eventually they're going to make a walking path from campus down to the dairy center, which is, you know, down the road a ways, because they don't have a way for students if they don't have cars to get down there safely. You know, they'll walk along the highway. So then this will be a good, you know, recreational resource for the college. So our summary practices, as I said earlier, mostly we had cover crops, but got quite a lot of people interested in the rest of the practices. And you know, we didn't really have to sell any practices. You know, after we had our kickoff event last June, people just kind of came in pretty steadily over a couple 3-week time period and got them signed up, and it's been great because, you know, I don't have to go. I mean, I've been going and talking to producers in the field, but you know, they're eager to try these things right now, which makes it pretty easy. And our nutrient reductions, and we get these from Iowa's pollutant reduction calculator. We run all the practices through there to get our numbers, and it'll just be continually updated throughout the project. And that picture is of Lake Meyer, which we have another project going on for that. That lake has really improved over the years and is an excellent resource for everyone in the watershed. Quite a bit of fishing and other opportunities out there. And that's it for me. Anyone have any questions? I think we have time for questions.
Any questions for either?
You're back, Jeff.
Well, the question was how many seed companies did we work with in the Benton County? So all of these projects are locally led, so it's the local Soil and Water Conservation District that brought those partners together. And in that watershed, it's primarily Pioneer. There is another, Remington is in the area as well, but so if somebody from Remington wanted to be part of the project, it wouldn't say no because you're not Pioneer or anything. But those are the two main ones in that area that I know of, but there's certainly other ones out there as well.
The question was for NICC, the ground that they're farming, do they have leases or do they do it themselves? They do it themselves. They've got a crop manager there, and he's in charge of all of it. When they see their cover crops, they have it drilled in after they take their silage off, and they hire that out. But it's all farmed. They control it all. And it's kind of like the college owns the land, and the Dairy Foundation is the tenant. It's called Iowa's, it's a pollutant reduction calculator. It was made by the Iowa DNR. It's a web-based tool. We did some water monitoring, but it wasn't, you know, small enough to kind of denote any nutrient reductions right now. It's going to be, I mean, this is the second year of a 3-year project. I think to show any nutrient reductions, you're looking at, you know, 10 years. So it will be difficult to have any of that, and maybe Matt could elaborate more. This project does not do any edge of field monitoring. Some of the other projects do in conjunction with Iowa Soybean Association. But no, we didn't, nothing was, you know, correlated to the sampling we've done.